Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. The World Series gets going on Friday, and it is our pleasure to welcome in a gold medalist. She won a silver medal as well. She's one of the voices of Major League Baseball on ESPN. She's going to be calling the World Series on ESPN Radio. She's also doing some fun stuff with Invesco QQQ. Jessica Mendoza, good enough to join us. Jessica, give us the thing you are most excited about between the Phillies and the Astros.
The first two games. I look at as much as the hype of Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez. Justin Verlander is going to win the Cy Young, but to me, the best pitchers in October are Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. And so as much as everyone's like, the Astros are going to roll over the Phillies, it's going to be an easy series. I get excited about those first two games because it's going to be dramatic. I really believe, I think people forget as great as Verlander has been, he's a Hall of Famer, all the things, right? He's going to win the Cy Young. He's 0-6 in his 7 post-game starts career. He's given up runs against the Mariners. He's had struggles, but then the bullpen picks them up. So the Phillies can score early in those first two games, and they could come out with 2 wins going back to Philly. Okay, now we're talking about a serious series when everyone has the Astros just rolling over the Phillies.
Yeah, Jessica, as you see, I just put on a Phillies hat. I'm from Philadelphia, so I was going to edit out anything negative you said about the Phillies, but we're already starting on a positive note. It's so hard to predict postseason baseball, but from what you're saying and other analysts, forget 87 wins. It feels like the Phillies have a legitimate shot here. Tell me, I think you just described it with starting pitching, but tell me the path. What do the Phils have to do to upset the Astros?
Well, besides obviously the pitching that I just mentioned, I really believe with this lineup and finally, and I can imagine what it's been like for you this season to understand the talent, understand the potential that never hit. And now all of a sudden it's all hitting at once when you look at this lineup, but they do have to get to the Astros early. And so whether it's Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez, Lance McCullers Jr., as you go throughout the starting rotation, those are the guys that you're going to hit against. You get to that Astros bullpen, I just don't see them having a lot of success. So the Phillies, and they do it when, starting with Kyle Schwarber right at the top, these guys are going to rake, but you got to do it early. I would say in the first 4 to 5 innings. Otherwise, they're not going to win.
Jessica Mendoza is our guest. Of course, she's calling the World Series on ESPN Radio. She's also joining us on behalf of Invesco QQQ, which we'll get to in a moment. And listen, Perloff is a Phillies fan. I don't have a dog in this race because I'm a Mets fan, but the Astros present. I know. Thank you, Jessica. It's not bad enough. I got to sit next to Perloff.
Hey, Dodgers were my team. So, we're feeling the same pain.
Different pain, but sure. So I don't mean to really pile on the Astros here, but I'm not sure how to feel about them because they're definitely one of the villains of the sport, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's very different because of the cheating scandal. Even though they've been back to the World Series since that, it seems like they've atoned for the sins that they committed in, 2017. For a lot of fans, I think it's hard for us to get past it. How should I feel about the Astros?
That they're a great team regardless of cheating. And that, we can get into the entire intricacies of 2017 and everything that happened and what other teams were doing. They just weren't as arrogant as the Astros banging trash cans. And regardless of, yes, I understand that 2017 will always be tainted, but let's be real, the last 8 years, the Astros have been one of the best teams you will see in baseball. And what they've been able to do to continue to get back. And really, they've got 4 or 5 guys from that team that are still even on this team. Everyone that they've lost, Garrett Cole, George Springer, Carlos Correa, they aren't on this team anymore and they keep on winning. You look at their farm system, Jeremy Pena, the guys that they've been able to come up that were nothing to do with that team have been great. Yordan Alvarez. So I think to me, it's something that I've moved on past a long time ago. I want to recognize this team for what they are and be able to really talk about them without having this, muddled, but remember 6 years ago, 5 years ago, what happened?
There's consistent excellency there, but that's not always what's most interesting. I think there's something about the Astros who I hear a lot of people rooting for the Phillies because it's a news story. They're sort of a lovable bunch. Do you, I'm kind of hearing from you. Do you think nationally the Astros should get more respect? Forget the cheating, just as a great baseball team.
Yeah, and who's their manager? Dusty Baker is loved by all, and I think the only people that aren't loving him are maybe people in Philly right now, but even if you were to ask someone about Dusty Baker 2 months ago in Philadelphia, they'd be like, oh man, isn't he great? Like just one of the best managers in the game. He's never won a World Series. He's done everything else. I mean, just you think about his career and, he's won a World Series as a player, but never as a manager. And he's one of the all-time greats. Just sitting with him for a minute, even watching him on television, however your interactions have been, this is someone that you can get behind. And so I do think as much as, the Phillies are definitely that team. I think Chelsea Jane, who's, by the way, just such a great follow on Twitter. She writes for the Washington Post, baseball writer. She posted something during the last Phillies game about Kyle Schwarber leading all of baseball in fan war. Just literally if you could add another stat, right? Fan, it would definitely be Kyle Schwarber off the charts, because how do you not love this guy and how he just rises to these occasions over the course of his career? Obviously Harper, Rhys Hoskins getting hot, Nick Castellanos, what he's been able to do, JT Realmuto. There's so many stories and guys. I agree with you, but this Houston Astros team is led by someone that is so legendary. And then you have players within that team that you can tell that clubhouse loves each other. And you got a lot of different backgrounds on that Astros team. And so I agree with you. I think it's a win-win. I love both of these teams, honestly. I usually don't. There's always a villain for me. I don't know if it's just because I'm calling the games and I like the drama of it. I really enjoy both these teams.
Jessica Mendoza is our guest. Couple more for you, Jessica, and we appreciate you making time for us. Away from the World Series, but this is going to be the biggest story of the offseason. It's Aaron Judge's free agency. Do you think it's going to be as simple as the highest bidder, the person who offers him the most money, is where he's going to play?
No, I think Aaron Judge, from what we've seen even over the course of his career so far, is just that he's different. He's very private, but he's also not the guy that needs the attention. He doesn't want the attention. Clearly, he's made that very clear. He doesn't want to win though. So I do think usually when you're going for the biggest contract, it usually is the team that isn't going to win. That's kind of how it's played out in the past. Maybe they're planning to win in the future. I would hope if you're going to pay someone maybe $50 million a year, that's not just to have him, but there's some sort of winning that's in your future. So I see Aaron Judge choosing the team that's the right fit, somewhere that he feels like maybe it's more home for him. But definitely not because it's the biggest payday. And we all know, dude's getting paid.
Well, do you think he's attached to the West Coast? If he had a preference there, because he's from there?
I don't think he's attached to the West Coast. I do think San Francisco is real. I do think that that's an enticing, and only because he's so close with his parents. We saw it with Freddie Freeman coming home to Los Angeles, his family being from Orange County. He talked about his dad traveling to Atlanta to see as many games as possible, but his dad wanted to be at every game. He can be at every single home game now in LA, and he has his spot right next to the dugout. It's super cute, high-fiving his son, after a home run. I see something very similar with Aaron Judge, where his parents, you're looking at it, the rest of his career type contract, right? This is how he'll end his career, is with this next team. His parents are older. I would think that, yes, being able to drive up, a couple hours to San Francisco, even drive down, that's where I think the West Coast comes into play. But I also know, from what I do know of Aaron Judge, is that he wants to find the team that's the right fit. Team is like family for him. He is that kind of teammate and that kind of player.
If you had to call it now, do you think that the Giants are the front runners for all the reasons you just said?
Oh, 100%. That would be the team if you asked me, and this is just my own hypothetical, nothing to do with what Aaron is saying, because he's not saying anything, obviously. Yes. And I've known his family. I've been around them. They are such a tight-knit group. And I definitely could see him, especially because now he's entering the phase, just got married, raising a family. We all know anyone who has kids, it's all about the grandparents. So you think from his wife's standpoint, you're looking at future, you want family close by. San Francisco to me would be number one.
We were just discussing a story came out today that there was some dislike of the booing in New York in the Yankees locker room, and people might have assumed that Aaron Judge was turned off by that. What do you think of Judge's sort of reaction to how the season ended in New York? And do you think there's some love lost there?
I don't think he's the type of player. I think it definitely bothers him more in the moment because he's frustrated with himself. So the boos echo maybe what his own self-talk of, you could tell he felt more pressure than I've ever seen him feel in his career. Just the way he was chasing, you could see the reactions, the frustration, looks on his face. He's carried this team the whole second half, and he wanted to be able to carry them all the way to the World Series, and he couldn't. So I don't think he'll hold it as a grudge to them, because the guys that usually do are the ones that are more insecure, the ones that when fans are booing, it's striking a chord that they're already insecure with. I think Aaron Judge has a ton of confidence and feels the same way that probably those fans were feeling in those moments. And that's probably why he was frustrated. It's like they're echoing what he's feeling inside his own head. But I think he's confident enough to where he can put it behind him and not hold on to that as a reason he wouldn't return to New York.
Jessica, you're working on behalf of Invesco QQQ. Now, you just mentioned anyone who has kids. You have kids. I have kids. Perloff has kids. We all have kids. We don't want them to be bad with money. Either make the mistakes we made or follow in our footsteps if we're actually good at money. Why did this campaign speak to you?
It spoke to me for all of those reasons, but also going back to like my 20-year-old self. And let's be real, like my 40-year-old self now, but at least I have a lot more knowledge than I did at 20. And that's where I really love the How Not to Suck at Money online game is that it literally is so entertaining, and it makes it, my 13-year-old has been on and loves it and we're having conversations that my parents never had with me. But the most important thing I think about right now is the college athlete. Like if you're really to hone in, because it works for everybody, but the college athlete with NIL, I mean, you're now asking anywhere from, think about it. Like if I got $200 when I was 20 years old, like, oh my gosh, like, let's go spend this. Like, how do I understand? And, there are 5 money secrets, borrow smart, spend with attention, pay yourself first, let your money work while you sleep, save when things go sideways. I mean, there's all of these tips that you just don't think about when you're that age. So to me, it really reaches out to that specific audience, even though, like I said, I use it, my kid who's 13, so now you have that range, but really trying now more than ever where college athletes are actually making money on the table, not under the table, so they can figure out what to do with it. So I'm grateful for Invesco QQQ because they're thinking and helping and educating, but doing it finally in an entertaining way to where we can all understand and have those conversations.
Yeah, I have an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. The 12-year-old wants to be a lawyer. The 11-year-old wants to be an actress and spends like it's going out of style. I'm going to get her immediately on how to not suck at money.
Well, the name itself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what my son was like, what is this? And literally the characters are video game characters. Like it speaks the language that really like that generation and the one behind me only understands. And then you just click on each one and it brings up these entire conversations that make it so comfortable to talk about money.
That's great.
Jessica, if NIL had existed when you were playing at Stanford, what would have been your ideal like branding opportunity back to college Jessica Mendoza?
I mean, it would have been what I already did, but it would have been really cool to get paid for it. I went around the country. I would speak to schools and mostly specifically young Hispanic girls. I did a ton of it. And so being able to reach, pay for it, get the understanding, things like body image, right now, mental health, the conversations that we were having. And, I would just go around to all these schools and I would do it again. But now to be able to get paid to speak, I get it's cool to sign with Gatorade and Nike, like, trust me, that would have been awesome too. But really to get like an understanding of how can I join with a partnership or a company where I can reach more young girls and get this messaging out there that we see now. I mean, with suicides, I mean, there's so much happening with young female athletes that breaks my heart. And I really want there to be more conversations. We just talked about it with money, but also about hard things, talking about the things that we struggle with as young women, and having those conversations with high school. Shoot, go to elementary schools. It starts there. Even they have phones and social media now, the things that they're exposed to. So that when I think about NIL, to be able to create some sort of business around that as a college athlete would have been amazing.
You can go to HNTASM.com. That stands for How Not to Suck at Money. Jessica, enjoy the World Series. Be careful of the Phillies fans like Perloff and his crew. They're always a little bit dicey. Have fun, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Andrew, you're going to be at what game? Come on, what number?
It's all Maggie and I'm telling Maggie we have to do the show down there, but her Mets fandom is hard to get off with it.
I'm like a dog with an electric collar. Once I leave the city limits, it shocks me when I get to Philly.
What game are we gonna clinch? That's my question for you, Jessica.
Okay. Well, you could clinch on game 4 and you're at home. So, I mean, 4 or 5 would be the one.
That's a little ambitious. That's not be ridiculous.
Yeah. When you hear somebody knocking on the door of the radio booth, you're already gonna know.
Seriously. Well, if you guys are there, please come find me and let's do one of these on site for sure.
Would love to.
Jessica, thanks so much. Enjoy the World Series.
Thank you, guys.
More Maggie and Perloff right after this.